Hi kids, it's Bunny with another junk journal, and I call this one Fairy Frolic, and it is approximately 9 by 6 inches with a 2 3/4 inch spine. It's hardback. Has a picture of a sad fairy on the front and some little flowers and some lace and a dragonfly brooch, which is not vintage, so don't get any ideas about that. It's just cute, that's all. Alright, so going inside, excuse me, and I've forgotten the name of where I got these digitals from, but I will put it in the notes below. Okay. There we go. I think that's far enough. Okay, inside we have a lace pocket embellished with little firefly wings and a little document-y thingy, and it's a journaling card which is blank on the back so you can journal on it, and a tag which is blank on the back so you can journal on it. Do note that I heat embossed the wings so they'd be glossy. That was fun. And what else? Oh, here's a gold tipped feather, and here is an envelope which you can open. Inside it has a vintage photograph, a man asleep under his car, and a vintage miniature dictionary page, and a piece of Indian sari fabric, and a note about this journal for the person who buys the journal, letting them know how it can be used if they're unfamiliar with junk journals. Little pearl there. And in this little tuck we have a fairy journaling card and a vintage photo, like two people trying to pet a cat, and a tag. Yes. And there's lace. I put lace on the edges of some of the pages, and there's coffee dyed paper throughout you can write on. There's little clusters. Here's a paper doily. Here's a pretty piece of paper with gold embossing on it. This is a page from a vintage book. And here's a polka dot ruffle. And this is a page from a vintage children's book, obviously. And in this tuck we have a journaling card and a tag and a vintage seed packet. No seeds inside. Sorry. They probably wouldn't be viable by this time anyway. And here's a page from a vintage book about birds. And here is some handmade paper with pretty flower petals. Some vintage sheet music. And here is a big side pocket in which I have something from a vintage book, some cartoons. Adventures of Mr. Tom Plump. Can't get it open. No, there it is. There we go. Yep. And a journaling card. And a bingo card. And a vintage photograph. And here is a miniature journal, which has tie attached, and inside it's got mini journaling cards and ephemera and a little bag with a vintage photograph and various things like that. So look inside these little journals. They have things in them. Moving along, more sheet music. Here is a tuck for the Tulip Girl, and here's a fairy playing music for the rabbits. Here's a vintage ephemera, a membership card for the Middleville Brotherhood, 1923, and a pretty tag. There's some little mini envelopes here and there too that I hope I don't overlook. Here's coffee dyed vellum paper which crackles so nicely. Vintage book page. Here is a glassine envelope flip open, and it's got a vintage postcard, picture postcard in it. Don't know why I'm putting it back. I could put it back later. And a little bit of stenciling. Continuing on. Such cute digitals. Here is a journaling card and a tag and playing card, vintage playing card, Costa Rica, and inside this envelope that served as the pocket there is a smaller journaling card. Moving along, here's some vintage wallpaper. A page from a book about fairies. Some vintage sheet music. In this tuck is a journaling card. And vintage little cartoony thing about cats. Let's see, here's a little envelope, and inside of it there's a vintage ticket and a sticker, and I think that's it for this one. Okay, here's just some pretty paper. A page out of the swans out of a vintage little book. Here is some player piano paper. Put a little butterfly on that side. Here is some pretty Indian sari fabric that I've clipped on here. And you might be able to use that for something. Here's another envelope flip out. And in it there's a journaling card and a vintage photograph. And on the other side I made a tuck with a journaling card in it. It's vintage wallpaper again. Here is a journaling card and a tag and vintage photograph and little tassels. I'm skipping a few pages here. There we go. And here is a vintage postcard. And here is another small envelope. Inside of it is a sticker and a miniature journaling card. I don't know if you saw that or not. I didn't really mean for you to see it actually. More vintage book page, vintage sheet music, journaling card, a tag, and here's a vintage library Dewey Decimal System card. And here's one of those teeny tiny envelopes, which I think I've overlooked some of them, and each of them have interesting vintage foreign stamps in them, so be sure to look inside. Some of them are very interesting. Another ruffle. Here are a page out of a old journal, or ledger journal. Ledger. And here's another big side pocket, and in it is something about the chaffinch. It's a vintage card about birds. And there's a letter dated 1936. And there's a letter inside that you can read. It's very nice. Interesting. I know I sound weird today, don't I? More of the vellum coffee dyed. I love that. And the vintage ticket. I'll have to replace that when it's falling apart. And there's a vintage photograph and a tag. Journaling card, vintage photograph. She looks like she'd see some fairies. And another vintage playing card, this time with birds on it. And zinnias and a tag. And a little envelope with a sticker and a journaling card in it. Vintage sheet music. Another page out of the fairy book. And this envelope tuck is a vintage wine label and a journaling card and a tag and a miniature envelope with a foreign stamp in it. And inside this envelope there's a vintage photograph. What is that? Oh, it's a car. Yes, I'm doing really well today. Alice in Wonderland vintage book. Here's a little glassine bag with a little pocket with a little journaling card in it. More wallpaper. I should have called it the fairies and the butterflies, huh? Here's a flip out with a journaling card. I think that's, no, there's something else. Oh, and a vintage calling card. The kind that has the name hidden. I love those. So that's vintage. And I think I jumped over the page or something. There we go. Okay. And this was in there, a tuck. Here's a little glassine bag with a vintage photograph in it. And a little journaling card. Another tuck. Cute journaling cards. And a tag. Another miniature envelope. I need to get moving on this. I'm going to run out of time. Journaling card. And a miniature journaling card. And here is some vintage ephemera. A receipt from 1945. A hardware store. And then we have the back, which has a tag and a journaling card and a vintage photograph and another tiny journal with little 3D butterflies. Cute. And inside of it is tiny ephemera and things like that too. So that's the Fairy Frolic journal. Get back in there. And it will be in my shop soon. So look for that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.